Good morning and welcome. Hello, my name is Karen Williams. It's lovely to see you all today and our final breakfast event for this year. It's an early morning here and I'm excited to find out where you're from and what's on your mind today. So we're going to be having a chat today about leading or leaving. So do you stay and make a stand or do you back yourself and go? So it's an awesome conversation I can't wait to have with you that I've been having with a number of women and female leaders recently who are interested in looking at what's their purpose and living their life in alignment with their purpose. So as you all jump on and start to get settled into this session today, grab your notebook and pen, grab your cup of tea and glass of water. And if you're out walking, welcome and well done for you. So who's here and where are you from? I'd love to know. I'm coming to you from Melbourne. So I'm here, Nat's at home, and James is here as well. So we're coming to you from Melbourne. Where are you from? I'd love to know and love to hear where you're dialing in from this morning. And also a little reminder that as we love to share our comments today, remember to switch your chat box to all attendees so that everyone, if you feel comfortable to, everyone can see your comments, because one of the things that's really rich and wonderful about this community and these sessions is that you learn from each other. And so you might take something away today and from today that someone else has shared and that has inspired you or resonated with you for a reason. So find that little toggle and change to all attendees. It would be wonderful. Thank you. So who's here today? So Nat saying good morning. Maria's here. Good morning. Oh, a cafe in Torquay. Sounds delicious. How's the weather in Torquay? Sunny, cloudy, a bit of wind about at the moment. So Christina, thanks for being here. Virginia, I think, is that right, in Geelong? Welcome to Leanne, and Kath's here from Sydney. You're out walking. Well done, Kath. Tracy's here. Elizabeth, good morning, Elizabeth and Tracy. Maria's cold. Okay, rug up with a nice cup of coffee or chai. And Anne's here. Nice to see you, Anne. So you're in Melbourne. Awesome. So fabulous. Thank you. And I know some people like to sort of sit in the background and listen in and maybe say anonymous, and that's totally fine too. It's all about what feels right and comfortable for us. So Sona's here from Melbourne as well. Jazz, good morning. Super excited. Excellent. I love that you're excited. I am too. So last session, hey, for 2021, and reflecting on what this year has been like and how it's been for you. I know for me, I feel like it's been a whiz-by of a year, quite a big year in many ways, personally and professionally, and feeling like, many people I'm talking to is feeling like it's time to take stock, not only after this year, but after the last couple of years. And really that's where the conversation for today came from, is given all that we've been through this last 2 years, and if you think about your journey and the people that you've interacted with, people that you've contributed to, and your family and their journeys, and all that you've accomplished, all that you've leaned into, maybe some things that have broken you at times, some things that you've had to rebuild from or restore through, all of those things have contributed to where you're at today and how you feel today. And then thinking about, well, what does that mean about what you want next year and the coming years to be about? Because isn't it interesting when we look back on the end of 2020 and we go, great, can't wait to leave 2020 behind, and 2021 is going to be a COVID-free year, we're just going to get on with life. And we know that things that we're experiencing or being challenged by don't go by the calendar. They don't get left because we have a New Year's Eve. So there's things that are still with you, and they could include learnings. They could also include kind of a heaviness, or maybe some relief. So there's lots of emotion that we're experiencing, and also because as leaders, we're managing and supporting the emotions of others as well. And many of us haven't known how to do that and have learnt very quickly over the last couple of years. Many leaders that I've worked with have gone on that journey with and for their people, and are still learning how to do that, how to expand their capacity to hold themselves or hold space for their own journey and for those for their people. And now at this point, many are asking themselves, do I keep leaning in where I am? Or is it time for me to take a break? Or is it time for me to actually make a change? And I think they're really valid questions. And a lot of that's to do with, well, what is my purpose now? Now that I can, I've experienced the last couple of years, maybe I'm stronger than I thought I was. Maybe I've got more to offer than where I am right now. Maybe I'm not feeling valued and respected in the way that's really important to me, and why would I waste any more time given what we've experienced? We don't know what's around the corner. And so it feels like this important time, doesn't it, of what's next for me. And so why I wanted to have this conversation with you today was because if you're pondering that question from a place of anything but full empowerment and alignment, the choices you make may not be the most fulfilling for you. So if you're pushing away from something that isn't comfortable or not working for you anymore, and you're sort of moving away from that, then that's not a full state of empowerment. Or if you're running towards something that you think is going to be the fix, or it's going to provide some relief, then that's not going to be a state of sustained fulfillment for you either. And so I want to provide this space for you today to start to explore for yourself in a little bit more depth and reflect as we go through this conversation today. Where are you making that choice from? Or where are you even pondering that place? And whether that's something that you're considering lightly now, or have just started to consider, or whether you're really deep in, no, I need to make a decision. Is it stay or go? And in any area of your life, really. Wherever you're at in that line of thinking, then today will help you, because it's about coming back to that place of clarity and confidence, and self-belief. That's really what today's about. It's about leave or lead. It's about stay or go, but it's really about clarity and confidence, and so that you can implement and apply that in any area. I remember, there's a couple of times in my life where, let's say, roll the clock back about 20 years, and I was working in the corporate world in financial services, and I was, doing well and being promoted, but I was like, this isn't all there is, right? I was about 24, I think. So I decided, on a whim, kind of, other people might say, look, on the outside looking in, that I would go and be a dancer. Now, I know that you think that those two things aren't aligned or somehow connected, but in my mind they were. So, I remember comments coming back to me, it's like, you're leaving this amazing corporate career, you're on this great path, why would you go do that? And I think what they were trying to tell me is, you're not that good a dancer, so, why are you risking this career? So it turns out that I'm not that good a dancer, but I loved it. I had 12 months of passion for this experience. And pair that with another experience, years later, let's say probably 20 years later, so maybe around mid-40s, when I wanted to start my business. It's about 9 years ago. And again, it was on a calling toward a vision. Now that's an important piece for you, a calling towards something greater than where you are now, a trust in your heart that something's being inspired within you. And so I brought myself from Brisbane to Melbourne to do that, to start my business, leaving a career of where I could have made a big difference, I feel, in an area that I was really passionate about. Again, called towards something, but not fully aligned yet. And so the journey was more of a struggle than it needed to be. And this is one of my messages for you today as well. It's about alignment. It's not about necessarily just about timing. It's about, am I aligned with the choices that I want to make or what's true for me, so that when I move in, I'm called toward and I can navigate with awareness and consciousness. So it doesn't need to be this proving or this push or this struggle. Yeah. So that's something that, I guess, wisdom that we all grow as we move through life. And hopefully that will support you and empower you in your session today about how you relate to this conversation and what you take from it. So there needs to be that calling toward, but also a knowing, an inner knowing. And that's what we're looking for today. So I hope that's making sense for you. Vicky, hi, welcome from New Zealand. I'm so pleased that you're here, and I'm so pleased that you're home safe and hopefully out of all the restrictions and from quarantine and so on. So I'd love to hear any comments that you have already from what I've just shared with you in the opening. And as you might like to share that in the chat box, I want you to know this is a place for you to be 100% who you are. So if you're here for the first time, this is your opportunity to really reflect and refresh and reset so that you move into your weekend or this busy time of year or your next few weeks in a way that feels maybe more aligned for you, more clear for you, and that you've invested in yourself. And I acknowledge you for being here. If you've been here many times and you're here again, well, I honour and acknowledge you for continuing to do the work. You inspire me, and I want to thank you for being here and sharing this morning together. And so this is the community that does the work. So these are workshops. So I give as much value as I can. There's nothing that I hold back, nothing that I'm trying to protect. I just give it and give it and give it. So hopefully you'll grab something and run with it today. I want you to be listening through the lens of what is it that you're working on and most important to you, so that you can catch the gold nuggets that are there for you today, whether that's something I say or something that someone else shares in the chat box. So my vision is a ever-growing, ever-expanding community of like-minded women, female leaders, doing the work on themselves, the courageous work, and then having a ripple effect in their lives, in their communities, in their organisations, in their families. And that vision is really gaining momentum now. That is very, very exciting to me, and that's what has me get up in the morning and be so thrilled to do the work that I do, and so blessed and grateful and appreciative. So that's my vision, and that's, it's an infinite vision, and I live it every day, and so I feel very appreciative of that. And so if we haven't met before, my team and I, we do programs, one-on-one executive and leadership programs, for people who come to us through organisations, and also people who come to us who invest in themselves. And then we also do lots of work with leaders and teams at different levels of organisations across industry. And that's very exciting work, because that's about accountability and trust and collaboration. So if you're interested in that work, then feel free to reach out, and happy to have a conversation with you. So today is about lead or leave. And if you're reflecting, I'd encourage you to write down, if you're in a place where you've got your journal and pen, what are the things that you're reflecting on? Is it about staying or going in a job? And we'll look at a pathway for that for you shortly. Or is it about a relationship maybe? Is it about boundaries for you? I really want to stay in this role, but these things aren't working. How do I communicate that? Or that it's time to leave maybe because you've outgrown where you are and you can't see a pathway elsewhere in that organisation, or in areas that are close to you. So you want to reach out and branch out. And maybe you're scared, or you're not sure of the resources that you need to do that, or you're questioning your skills. One of the things that I want you to know, that every woman, every female leader, and certainly in my experience, all men as well, that I coach, have some level of self-doubt. No matter the facade that we put on, there's always some level of self-doubt. And that may surprise you, because you look at the people around you and think, how could they doubt themselves? Look what they do, look what they have. But I promise you, I work with leaders from all levels of organisations, and they all experience the same. And so in some ways that brings us closest together, doesn't it? And we can learn from each other. So if you're thinking about what's right for you, or you're wondering about what your next steps are, or you'd like to make a difference but unsure how, some women are thinking about, well, I'd really like to go deeper into this skill set that I'm developing. How could I do that in a business or in a side hustle? Someone shared with me recently. So that's something that you might like to think about today as well. All right, so here's the thing that I want you to know, is that change can be challenging, right? So whether that's change in ourselves or making a change physically, but indecision is debilitating. And for me, reminding myself of that is really important, because there's times where I'll stay in indecision and it drains me. And, that feeling of finally making a decision, it's like, and now I can get on with it. I'm sure you've had that experience. And so today is about helping you to find your yes or no, because there's no better or worse. Staying or leaving is not better or worse. It's not going to solve all your problems. It's not going to make everything better. But if you can come to a place of yes or no, whether it's today for you or using the work from today over the coming weeks, then that will support you to come back to a state of empowerment. Don't stay in indecision. All right. So, all good so far? Anne, thank you for being here from Sydney. A great topic. I know it's a great topic for the end of the year, isn't it? So, any insights so far that you might like to share in the chat? And I'll be monitoring the chat today because Nat is at home. Lovely Nat, who's usually here, my amazing assistant, executive assistant, who makes my world so much easier. I'm blessed by you, Nat. So thank you, and thank you for being here from home. So let's look at the 3 things we're going to do today. So think, do, and leave. All right, so I want you to think about, and this is why you're here, I imagine, what's most important to you going forward. Yeah? What is it? How do you want to end the year, and what's most important for you going forward into next year around this stay or go, lead or leave? So it might be an easy thing that you could write down right now. And then what I want you to be doing is identifying the real issue, right? And often it can be surprising what's at the core, because the conversation in our head can be, this place is no longer a match for me. It requires from me what I'm no longer willing to give. And so the answer is out there. And we know, if we're sort of from a hypothetical or a theoretical perspective, we know that the answers aren't out there. But when it's our own life and we're in that situation, it can feel like that's the right way to go. It can feel like that's relief because we're looking for that relief of the pressure or the tension. And so we think that that's the answer, but that's not the real issue. It's not at the core. Because I promise you, in 3 months' time, you'll start to experience the same things. Yeah. And so I'm not saying the real issue is with ourselves, but I'm not saying it's not either. Okay. So there's some things in there that you might like to consider about our ways of thinking. Not that there's anything wrong here, but how we're thinking around this issue or this challenge. Yeah. So there's that. And then I want you to leave with new awareness. New awareness and confidence in your potential, clarity in your direction, and some tools to support you. Yeah. So coming back to that space of alignment is really what I'm after for you here today, so that you leave feeling like you've got the answers within you, because you do. And so the indecision or the pros and cons that you might be doing, you'll find, and hopefully you'll start to realize, a kind of a lower level conversation, when actually, if you feel in a state of empowerment, you'll know your answers from there. That's my commitment and intention for you today. All right? All right. So I hope no one's chatting because I can't see it. So if I'm not seeing any chat, that's good if you're not sharing, but I'd love to hear some insights that you might be working on. What is the topic for you today? Yeah, and share as much or as little as you'd like to, but I'd love to hear some topics because they'll inspire others. And so I want to offer, before we sort of get into the content today, of a moment of appreciation and gratitude. You know, ending our days with appreciation, starting our days with appreciation can be really powerful. Certainly that's something that I practice. And I thought it might be worthwhile doing that today as well, as we come into the close of 2021. And as you think about what you've experienced and all that you've brought to yourself and this year and the people around you, taking a moment to appreciate you. So I want to appreciate you and the privilege that I have of being your coach on this journey. And while we might not have met yet face to face, that we have shared these sessions, these conversations that have been moving and inspiring for me. So I really appreciate your willingness and courage to keep showing up, because as James and I were talking about earlier today, it's a lifelong journey to work on ourselves. There's no finish line. Yeah, and when we do get to a finish line, there's always the next one. So I honour you for being willing to continue to show up for yourself, and thank you for allowing me to support you in that. I want to appreciate my team, the team around me, and that's my close team, as well as our service providers and people like James who keep showing up for us, who have had, challenging years as well. And James is always here with a smile and, a cheer, being my cheer squad behind the camera. So, people like James and other people in our lives who support us, I really want to share that appreciation. And also, of course, the people that we work with day in, day out, our valued and important clients who trust us with themselves and their people and their journeys. So what an amazing array of things to be appreciative of. So it's a beautiful time to take that moment, isn't it? So I'd love you to take a moment to look at what are you appreciating in this moment. And as I prepare to share with you the next piece, take a moment to do that. You might like to pop that in the chat box. Love that, Elizabeth. Yes, some important changes, and we'll be working together. So excited for that. And for those who are interested, I'll talk to you a little bit later about the Inner Circle. And so that's a very exciting program that we're doing next year, and Elizabeth is part of that. So excited. Elizabeth, thank you for being part of the Inner Circle this year. And so Maria shares, what if parts of the organisation are not aligned with one's values? Yeah. But within the team or department, we can determine our own team values. I love that, Maria, and let's talk about that as we go through. Thank you, Jen. Jen says, so grateful for you. Aww. And our work together this year has been life-changing for me. Yeah, thank you for helping me get unstuck. So welcome. I love working with you, Jen. Thank you. Yeah, grateful for our family and our support from our family. Absolutely. Our family just keep showing up for us, don't they, in our challenges. So, Maria, that's a great question, and I do want to come back to that. So I'll start off where I'm going to start off, and then please come back to me if I haven't fully answered it for you. All right. So Lisa says, for the first time in my life, I made some big decisions about moving away from a business I love by listening to my heart and feeling into the alignment of my self-belief rather than my thinking and my logical mind. I'm grateful for the work you had me do, work on my self-trust and self-belief. I need to make this happen. Such strong work, Lisa, this year. Really, really strong, and it's been such an inspiration to work with you, so thank you. So, beautiful and warm and fuzzy, right? I'm feeling the tingles. Are you feeling the tingles? I certainly am, and thank you for that. So, part of what I experience in working, what I hear in working with women and female leaders is that maybe you're experiencing a culture of leadership that doesn't align with your values. So maybe in your team, you've created this amazing team because of your own values, and that's what Maria was speaking to, but the broader organisation, potentially how that works and functions, does not align. That's a push-pull divide, isn't it? A really tough place to be. So we'll talk about that. So maybe that's partly what you're experiencing. Maybe you want to be part of the change, but you feel overwhelmed with the job ahead. So you know that you're able to cause change, but it feels overwhelming. Maybe you don't believe that change will happen, and so you're hearing these promises from above, but you're not seeing the rubber hit the road yet, and there's a misalignment there for you in how you're witnessing the leadership or the people around you. Maybe you're questioning whether you've got the energy. Is there any energy left in my tank to actually make a difference here, or to even make a change in my life? I know a lot of women are actually wanting to reconnect with their purpose. What is my purpose? And sort of seeking those signs or that guidance from outside themselves. Some women are ready to explore, but uncertain, is this the right time? Is this the right time given what's happening with my family or the time we've been through, or, I'm just about to move into this great thing with work. So the timing can feel like a challenge as well, or there's uncertainty around that. And of course, the self-doubt that we spoke to before, do I have enough? Do I have the right skills? Can I hold my space and hold my own? What's the environment I'm moving into? Will I feel confident? And we often sort of wait for those feelings to come before we make the decision. Whereas actually what I would like you to do and support you to do is to consciously come back to your state of alignment and choose from there. Because if you're scared, but you're ready, that's the perfect place to be. When I work with women who are taking that leap, and like Lisa and others have shared this morning, Elizabeth, It's about, I know I'm clear, but I'm scared. I've got those butterflies. That's the time to leave. Yep. So that's what we're talking about today. And I've mentioned this before to you, the Deloitte Women at Work report. Now, that was a survey done of 5,000 women across 10 countries and 10 different industries at a range of leadership levels. So it's a really significant and important report, but easy to read. I encourage you to take a look at it. Over 50% of women said they were considering leaving their job in the next 2 years because of the last 2 years of experience in the pandemic, and I'll explain a little bit about why. 77% of those 5,000 women said their workload had increased because of the pandemic. 31% are now saying that they can't switch off because if they're switched off, especially working remotely, they've now trained others to believe that they should always be on. And also they feel that it will be detrimental to their career now that people are expecting them to always be on. What if I now start to put boundaries back in place? Will that be detrimental to my career? And does that mean that I need to leave and go somewhere else and set new boundaries then and start afresh? If you're not setting boundaries now and you're wanting to go to another place and think that's going to have you be able to set boundaries, that's not, as I said before, the real issue. The real issue is you building your confidence again and have clarity around what those boundaries are and communicating them. Do that practice work where you are and then move on. Yeah. And then 52% experience non-inclusive behaviour. And what I mean by that, some examples of that is their judgment was questioned. They didn't feel like they could speak up in meetings, less opportunity to progress because of the pandemic. They can't see a pathway. Maybe their leaders aren't making that clear for them. And I've had conversations around that this week. They've had negative comments back to them about their communication style. And I do a lot of work in communication and helping female leaders adapt their communication so that they can engage a range of personalities and profiles. And often we get told, we've got to tone it down or we're too much or speak up or all of these things. And so we can feel like that is not in alignment with where we want to be. We don't want that judgment coming back at us. And then also some experiencing less one-on-one time with their leader because there's so much pressure now based on the 2 years that we've had. The pressures have changed. And so now they're experiencing less time with their leader. So all of those things are going toward women going and people going, is it time for me to leave? Be very aware, though, of when you're moving into somewhere new, are you moving into something similar? Okay, and that's what the conversation is about today. All right, are we good? Any other further sharing or comments? So, Virginia, thank you so much. You've shared the Women at Work. Amazing. I love this community. Thank you. What I'm experiencing in this last few months, and certainly conversations going into next year, women are showing up with way more courage. Like the fight has been inspired in them. The fight for, I deserve more, I want more, I'm going to go now and get more. I'm feeling there's this momentum and this strength that women are tapping into in themselves. And that's, I'm having more and more of those conversations and I love that. And so I'm also experiencing women realising it's more and more up to them. So rather than waiting for the environment to change to feel the way that I want to feel, I know now it's up to me. What do I need to do? Who do I need to be? So let's get to work, yeah? All right, so I want to give you this model that will start to build on this conversation. And as we build, I'm keen to hear your reflections and how this relates to you. So I want you to think about, in whatever area you're working on, I want you to think about, this is not a complex model. I want you to think about these points in time. So let's say this is now, right? All that's come before is where you're at now. And now there's this maybe a fork in the road or maybe a few different options for you. And you're starting to think, because that's why you're here today. That's why this topic resonated, right? There's something that you're thinking about and a choice you want to make going forward. And whether that's now or somewhere in the near future. And so there can feel like this fork in the road or these options. And we start to weigh them up in our mind, don't we? Start to ponder them. And so it could be, I'm going to stay, but what does that mean about, okay, what are the boundaries I need to put in place? What's okay and not okay by me? is it the same job or a different job, right? So that could be the stay, and the go is, well, do I stay in the same industry, or, is it the same type of role, or is it my own business, or is it, is it a break, or is it something else, right? And then there's other versions of that, whatever that might be for you, because I don't want there to be an either or. So consider that you're at this point now where you're looking into making a decision, right? And then I want you to think about here, this is the point where you came to where you are now, but whether that's this job, the role that you're in now, or this organisation, or this industry, or let's say you're working on a relationship, this relationship. So this is, let's say, when you started this particular role, or this version of the role that you're in. And then there was the before, right? And this is let's say, your past. And this is about your experience that you've gathered, your expertise, your skills, your wisdom, all of that you've brought with you to this role. And then there's this journey that you've taken from when you came into this role with maybe hope and inspiration and expectation. Maybe there were some agreements about how it would go. Maybe there were some assumptions. Yeah. And so you came to this role looking into, with all of your experience, into what this could be. Yeah. And maybe there was creativity for you about creating it yourself. Again, this could be your own business as well. I know there's women here that have their own business. And so that could be the start of your business, or maybe this is this iteration of your business that you're thinking about is this point in time. That this point in time could be whatever you choose it to be. So, and there would be commitment here as well. And whether that's financial commitment, energetic commitment, time commitment, there might have needed to be some conversations around with family, or, negotiations around a salary or fees, whatever that looks like. Yeah. So there was a lot that you brought to this point in time. Would you agree? With the, it's almost like with the expectation of what this could be for you and what you were hoping it to be, what you were planning for it to be. Yeah. And then what's most important now is for you to think about, what has this journey been compared to what it was or what you were hoping it to be. James, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. Are we all good with audio?
I think we should be all
we're all good? Okay, cool. If there's any challenge with the audio, please let me know. I'm just hearing myself and I'm not sure where that's coming from. Maybe it's coming out of the computer, which is all good. Which tells us we're live, right? So then I want you to think about this journey that you've taken. Of course, it's not linear, right? It's like this, it's like that, it's like this. We all know the journey of success and experience. But for the sake of this exercise, I want you to think about the journey that you've taken along this road to get to today. Yes? And I want you to start to think about the earliest time you can remember that this started to not be that anymore. Where you had your first experience of a little bit of hope going, or a little bit of what you planned it would be like, starting to question that. If you can start to think about, when was the first time that you can remember that happened from between here and here. Now, for you, it might be here. I might use a different pen. This might be the first time you can remember. It was amazing until here. Yeah. Okay, so then what I want you to do is write down the event, what that was, the situation, your experience, and I want you to write down the thought you had about that. So just take a moment to do that, please. So you might like to share in the chat box, or if you've got questions, let me know. And now I'm hearing some pumping music, so we might have a bit of a boogie on a Friday morning. So find your most recent event when all of these things that you had coming into this role, or this iteration of your business, or this point in time. There's always a point in time, right? And when it stopped becoming that. When's the earliest time? And now I want you to think about what was before that. What was the time before that? And see if you can get to the earliest time. Now, this process might be familiar for those of you who've worked with me, because you'll have heard me say before, there's a point in time where it starts to go from empowerment to disempowerment. And what happens is, if we don't find those moments in time, we start to build a story that we don't realise we're building. Now, I'm not saying it's not a true story. It could be absolutely true that the culture is the way that it is. But if that's how you're interacting with your place of business, or where you're working, or your clients, for example, then that's the limitation that you're also putting on it. And there's no room for it to be anything else. Yes? So if you're relating to that as true because you've got lots of evidence for, you're both going to stay stuck. And this exercise is about helping you understand, when did I start to build that truth or that story? And can I start to find some clarity in that? Because that will help you start to come back to a place of alignment. Because as I said to you earlier, we want to be making this choice from a place of alignment, not from pushing away from something or only being called towards something. Because both of those become a struggle, yeah? And it's harder than it needs to be. So what we're looking for here is those moments where you can see where your important moments to you, and maybe really challenging and emotional and hurtful for you. So they're all valid and important. And I want you to identify them. So see if you can get 1 or 2 or 3 events where it was where you stopped being hopeful and expectant and inspired and connected, and something else started to come in. Yeah? So give me some examples if you can, so I know that this is connecting for you. So Elisa or Eliza says, started with losing trust with people I work with. Great. So now, please, is that Elizabeth maybe? I can't see the whole name, sorry, on my computer. So if it's about, it started with losing trust. So what had you start to lose trust? There's an event or a situation or something was said to you that had you start to lose trust. Because can we see, and this is great for all of us, that I started to lose trust is more like what I would call the fog. It starts to become a fog of truth and lots of decisions put together. And that there, we can easily want to move away from a culture where I've lost trust in people. And that's valid. But then all of a sudden that's going to have us now be more reserved and guarded. Now we're going to find a new opportunity, reserved and guarded. Yep. It's not going to bring you what you want, what you really want, what you're capable of, and all that you want to contribute. It's not going to allow that, because you've shifted because of that experience, yes? So actually what we're doing is we're opening ourselves back up by understanding what our journey has been, all right? So I want to hear from you, and you don't have to do specifics, but I want you to, around names or anything like that, obviously, but just come up with an event that you had where you can see that the hope started to turn into disappointment, or the inspiration started to turn into doubt, or the connection you had with someone like your leader, you started to question. Yeah, I want to hear those moments that you've got those moments. So Marnie says, unacceptable behaviour that was tolerated made me lose trust. Yes. And so this has got such a great point, Marnie, because we can see behaviour that doesn't align with our values and our cultural values, and that the values that we've adopted as a business. But then we see our leaders tolerated in others, and that has us lose faith in the leadership, doesn't it? So then we start to lose trust in that. So that's an important moment if you can identify that. So once we start to identify these moments, what happens is we start to get clarity around why we're looking elsewhere. because, for example, when I was working with an RTO, registered training organisation, a number of years ago, and I was employed by some people who'd done a lot of transformational work themselves. So I had high expectations of what this culture was going to be about, because I knew the work that they'd done, and they were engaging me because I'd done similar work in the past. And so I had lots of inspiration. I was really excited. And then very soon, about a month into the role as a coach and facilitator in this organisation, I was in a team meeting, and we were sitting around a small table, board table. There was about 10 of us there, and the husband and wife worked in the team. And the way that the husband spoke to his wife in front of everybody, I was absolutely shocked. And especially because these people had done a lot of the work that I'd done in the past. And right then in that moment, that was a moment for me where I started to build a different story about this environment. And then I noticed myself started to collect evidence and started to be more guarded around different people because of that moment. And then there was more moments and more moments and more moments. And then I started to hear the language of other people about this person, this gentleman. And then everyone started to relate to this gentleman, or had already been relating to him, but I hadn't seen it until now. Yes? So now I was starting to see lots of different things because my filters had changed. Now, that didn't mean his behaviour was okay. But if I had stayed in those filters, it was very much limiting who I was in that organisation. And of course, then influencing how I would show up in my work with our clients. And so because I'd practiced this work a lot, I was consciously aware of what my triggers were doing and continually challenging myself to show up and have brave conversations with him, hold him accountable, manage up, and all of those things. Now, I did that for about 2 or 3 years, and then I came to a place and went, this is not okay by me anymore. Now, it wasn't that I tolerated toxic behaviour, it was that I separated myself and allowed myself to be my best with our clients and to have brave conversations and push back, rather than allow myself to fall into a place of gossip and disempowerment. It took work, but that's what I'm talking about, these moments where we can unplug ourselves from creating this story that then has us go look for something else and think that that's going to be the fix. You guys with me? So I want to hear some reflections. All right, so Tracy says, being part of a broader team, we're dysfunctional and feeling like I don't fit. Yes. So that was one of your moments, Tracy. Receiving tough feedback and not listening to it for the benefits. Well done, Lisa, thank you. Yeah, same for me, Jen. So I'm just going back to read. So you've all been sharing since I've been talking. Very good. Organisational culture became out of alignment. Yeah. And so there was moments, Jen, for you, when we say organisational culture became out of alignment with my values, awesome. Can you hear how that's a high level statement, like a in the cloud statement, which is contextual, which is true for you and valid? Now can you chunk it down just for the purpose of this exercise and go, what was my evidence for that? If I look, when I was looking through the window, what would I have been seeing, what would I have been hearing that had me build this truth for myself? And I'm not saying the truth is wrong, I'm just saying it's empowering to understand how we got to that place. Because pushing away from a culture, trying to get to something else, actually keeps us limited inside that conversation, yeah? Receiving tough feedback, yes, very good. Leanne says, one of my managers made me question my own abilities, but I soon realised it was her just projecting. Yeah, it caused me a lot of self-doubt, but I worked on myself and through the help and guidance from amazing sessions and my friends. Oh, from these amazing sessions, awesome. And your friends, fabulous. I've built myself back up and now I have a lot to offer. So good, Leanne. And so it sounds to me like that was a big journey for you, from allowing someone to take your confidence away, yeah, because she didn't take it away, you allowed it, as we all do at times, yeah. But what I hear in your language is self-responsibility and then awareness of coming back to alignment with self. So it's really awesome. And Elizabeth shares, I'm having a similar experience with a client right now and trying to work out how to address it. Yeah. So lots of great sharing and it's making sense. Excellent. Wow, that's really great, Jazz. I used to be the type of person who mirrored behaviour I experienced. It caused disconnect within me. Wow, that's really powerful because it's almost like because of that need maybe to belong and because we are tribal beings that we want to sort of be part of a culture or a tribe. And so we can find ourselves reflecting that or mirroring that, and then that's not healthy for us. I think that's what you're saying. Yes, and now regardless of how others behave, I'm aligned with my values. And yes, and so you respect yourself. I want everyone to get this from Jazz because it's really, really powerful. And there'll be times, you know, maybe at parties or maybe in your family, now we're going into Christmas, have you ever find yourself starting to behave a little bit differently when you're at the Christmas lunch? And it's back to when you were children and you fall into those dynamics. It's a similar thing. It's a fitting in thing. It's that need for belonging. And also the doubting of ourselves. So put that together and we start to mirror other people. And also because the culture, and as Siobhan McHale talks about in her book, The Insider's Guide to Culture Change, the culture lives inside the walls. And so when new people come in, we can adopt, like when we come into a new organisation, we can adopt that way of being or behaviour because we start to mirror what other people are doing. And often it's because we're not aware of it and we slowly sort of adapt, right? We're adaptive beings. And it's not until we wake up and start to come back to our own alignment, go, hang on, what are my values? What's true for me? That we realise that there's a contrast there, and it takes courage to come back to ourselves. So that's work that Jazz has done, and I love that. Yeah, very good. All right, good work so far. So where are we at? Time, 1:15, so that's good. So this here now, right, so if you think about what I want you to acknowledge all that you brought to this role or experience that this moment here. And then I want you to see if you can connect again with that. And then take responsibility if you can for these events. Now, what I mean by responsibility is what you made it mean. And this can feel tough for some because it's like, what do you mean? It's not my fault. They were behaving badly. I get that. But the only thing that we can be responsible for is our mindset. And this is what's really important in this moment of now for you. So all of these events are things that happened, right? And they were, you know, not okay, let's say, and don't fit with your values. But then there's a meaning that you added, and then a behaviour that you adopted. And as Jazz shared, maybe something happened, she added her meaning, and then her behaviour became a mirroring of others, and then she tolerated that in herself. That's what I'm talking about, self-responsibility. Because then, can you see how that's, and I know Jazz won't mind me sharing this, that can be an easier way of dealing with challenge than taking responsibility and saying this is not okay. Because speaking our voice can be challenging and scary. Yep. So we start to adapt, like the frog in the water. When the water starts to heat up slowly, the frog will stay in the water and not jump out even though it boils to death, right? We've all heard that analogy. And so it's because we're adaptive and we don't see the silent change within us. We don't feel it. But if you can wake up to what these events were, you can start to see what you might do as a pattern potentially in your new place, right? Whether it's stay or go, which is why I said to you in the event information, it doesn't matter whether you stay or go. But I'm not saying to stay in a toxic culture. I'm saying realign with yourself first by understanding this and understanding why. Why did you adapt? Why did you adapt and not speak up sooner, let's say? And again, there's no blame or fault here. It's not okay that people behave in a certain way that's not aligned with what they said that they would do. But we can't control other people's behaviour, right? So what we want to do is understand why we accepted it or tolerated it back here. Because when we tolerated it back here and didn't say anything, and then the next time and the next time, and now we're looking at to stay or go, it's almost like we're in a place where, not too late, but it's a place where it's not fully empowered. But if you can shift your state of empowerment first by understanding this and knowing why you did that, then you can create empowerment here, whether you stay or go. You guys with me? And that's the most important thing, which is why I said today is about clarity and confidence, not about the right or the wrong decision, because there is no right or wrong decision. It's about alignment first and then. Yeah. Because as I shared with you, even coming back to Melbourne to create my business 9 years ago, I was pulled and called, so I did. But I did it before full alignment. I didn't really know full alignment, emotional alignment back then. And so the journey was harder to create what I've created and create what we've created now in the team. And it probably took a little bit longer than it needed to. And it doesn't matter because all of that's valuable. But in hindsight now, I can see the power of alignment. So I share this with you so that you can maybe learn from my mistakes or from hopefully the wisdom that I've gained, that if you create alignment first, then you can be called, but also you're dancing with awareness, yeah, to what's right for you. All right, so let me hear this. All right, so it looks like I've missed lots of comments and lots of sharing. So awesome. You guys just talk amongst yourselves and I'll catch up with it later. This alignment of my values with broader management, connection with leader of organisation. So who would like to have a chat? I might open the chat box. We've got a few minutes to do that. Can we do that, James? Yeah. I just wasn't sure with Nat not here how we would do that. So who would like to have a chat about something that's really, like if you're really inspired and something's come out of you today and you're like, yeah, I really need to get this thing. I've got this question. Then let's hear from you while I catch up on your reflections. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading some comments. All right. What happens when you do speak up, have courageous conversations, but still don't feel heard? Okay, Kath, that looks like you want to have a conversation. So would you be happy to open up your mic and have a chat? Kath, good morning.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'm
Can
really...
you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you so well, and I'm sure everyone can too. So just pop in the chat box somebody that you can hear, Kath. That would be very helpful. So talk to me about, you feel like, and I really appreciate you sharing here. I know a lot of people will gain so much from your sharing. So what happens when you speak up, have courageous conversations, but still don't feel heard? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I really loved what you've been talking about today about, the stories that we tell ourselves and also, how then it changes my behaviour. So I guess, when I think about those events, I get, it makes me more guarded around those people or the person. And then that does influence how I show up and I need to be responsible for that. And I think what my question is more around, while I take accountability and responsibility for myself, perhaps it's an energy thing too. I feel drained by the fact that I feel like it's always me making the effort, and it just goes round and round in circles. And maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign to leave, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just how, and it makes me feel then that I'm not being heard, and then that feeds that story that you were talking about. And that's a trigger for me. So I guess my question is, how do I stop feeling triggered? But to me, I feel like that behaviour is still there.
Yes, very good. And I hear this a lot. So you're not on your own about, it feels like it's always me that's got to do the shift or the work or the awareness. And yes, I hear that. I feel that myself too at times. And it can be draining. And then we know the value of this path, right? So, but I want you to know that I get you around that. And what I want to say to you is that when you're in those moments about wanting to be heard, have you, and maybe you have shared with the person or the people that you're not feeling heard in that moment?
Yes, and there's, in that moment, then there's acknowledgement of that.
Okay.
Like when I've called it out, there's acknowledgement.
Okay.
And there has been apology at different times, which I'm just like, great, let's move forward. But then
the behaviour's not changing. And so as we know, we can't change behaviour, and potentially that may be at the time where we if we've tried all those things and it's at a time where it's still not okay by us, we can either submit and sort of go, well, I've tried before and nothing changes, so I'll just give up. That would not be the path of empowerment, would it? And I know that you know that.
No.
So in that moment, actually, you know what, I'm not feeling heard right now. What I need to be heard is this, and what would have me feel heard is this. Then that's really also depending on others for us to feel a certain way, because what I've discovered also is that yes, every human being wants to be heard, but there's another level here of hearing ourselves, and there's something for you about you're not hearing yourself in something, and therefore there's a little bit more reliance on other people hearing you and validating you, which we all want. It's part of being human, part of being in a community, whether that's work or home, wherever. But for me, there's another distinction, like beyond that step is, what is it that I'm not acknowledging for myself and giving and providing for myself in that? And that can sometimes,
that makes sense.
And that can sometimes feel like, well, what, we just do this journey alone then? Like, do I need anyone else really? And I know that can sometimes feel a little bit, out on the skinny branches, I call it, sort of doing the work and no one's coming. But I think here maybe, Kath, what I'm feeling into, because we've worked together before, is maybe there's a place you want to go that you're holding back and justifying it with wanting them to hear you.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
What's happening for you as we talk now? What's present for you right now?
Yeah, I think I don't know what that is. I think you're right. I think something is holding me back, but I don't know what it is that's holding me back, actually. And that's probably why the whole, and that's why, you talking about leaving isn't going to change it. I need to find that within myself of why I'm feeling this way and why I keep getting triggered to feel this way.
Yeah, what I'm feeling is that there's a lower level conversation called, you need to hear me, they need to hear me, they're not hearing me, and behaviour's not changing. And there's a higher level conversation called, and I'm not talking about superior here, I'm just talking about quality, a higher quality of conversation within yourself of, what do I want, and where am I not being courageous as I could be? And I think it's potentially maybe got to do with not just work. Maybe there's also some requesting of needs. These are my needs, and I'm, maybe you're not speaking all your needs to all the people in your life. Maybe you're holding yourself back there as well. Because I feel like there's a power in you that maybe you're not fully owning yet.
Mm-hmm.
Does that resonate or no?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you.
No, you're not going yet. I haven't finished with you yet. So if you were to feel into what courage would look like right now and feel like, what would be the next step for you? Not the next step as in where would I go, like not the big next step, but today. What would courage look and sound like?
I think it is continuing to have those courageous conversations, but starting from a place where I'm being totally honest with myself, as you say, how I'm showing up, that I'm not showing up not with the story, the path, but I'm actually in that moment, and not thinking about how it was in the conversation before, if you know what I mean. That may not have been, but actually be in that, and I think that's a good start. Yeah,
because it takes something to let go of the evidence we've been collecting, doesn't it? To then go, can I show up fresh myself?
Yes.
And then experience them fresh today, rather than I know how this is going to go.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, we often think, well, if I did that, then I'm exposed, I'm being vulnerable, and maybe I'm not being valuing myself enough because I'm exposing myself to their behaviour. But actually it's the opposite. It's like, am I willing to be courageous enough to own my boundaries and say, I'm showing up fresh today, I'm not bringing a story about you. And that has people then allow themselves to not bring a story about us, because they've got a story about you too.
Yes.
Right? And so that dynamic is feeding off itself. Are you with me?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Good job, Kat. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Kat.
I appreciate it. So I know that you would have all got something from that conversation with Kath, and I really appreciate Kathy speaking and sharing what's true for you, because it always comes back to the mindset and our awareness. And again, who do we need to be such that we can call it out and then make our decisions from empowerment and clarity. So I hope it's been a valuable session today for you. We're at the end of time. Thank you so much for being here. It's our last session for the year. Our next session is at the start of February. So have a wonderful break over this next couple of months, I guess, or month and a half. Stay safe, be well. And Nat's going to pop in the chat box right now our program for next year, our public program at Inner Circle Level 1. Our Inner Circle Level 2 is nearly full. Our Inner Circle Level 1 is our entry level for this kind of conversation with community. It's 22 women only, or 20 women only, and we're starting in April with our kickoff in March. So Nat's going to pop that in the chat box if you'd like to check it out. There's a web page there and you can register and you can start your journey this year and get in sort of in your plan and in your energy for next year. So time whizzes by. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see you again next year, but take a restorative break, rest, nourish yourself. I look forward to seeing you again in Feb. Take care, everyone. Bye.